Hey friends, Irene, Lyon here. Welcome to this video, to this channel, and to this entire world of healing trauma, nervous system health, and all things neuroplasticity. One of the bigger topics in my suite of work and that my students work through and work with and are constantly mastering is working with anger and healthy aggression. And this clip I have for you today is from a longer special topic lecture I did in 2020. It would be fall, November-ish of 2020. And I recommend watching the full episode after you watch this to get the full scope. What I go into in this shorter clip is just what aggression is, healthy aggression, how it gets formed, how it might not get formed, how it might get stunted when we are young, and also the consequences of holding all this important life force, emotional energy inside of our bodies. I have an entire playlist on my YouTube channel that has all of the videos I've done around healthy aggression, anger is medicine, you name it. I also have some articles specifically understanding and linking the connection between depression and the suppression, so between depression and the suppression of anger and healthy aggression. Now, anger and healthy aggression is not to be confused with violence and crime, where we are hurting other people or we are hurting ourselves. Part of our human condition, I believe, is we have not been taught how to work with anger and healthy aggression in a healthy, positive way. I know that it is medicine when we work with it well and work with it with safety and in a contained way that isn't explosive. So watch this clip, and then of course, if you want to dive deeper, and I hope you do, check out the other resources that are near this video. Take care. We as human beings we're like world-class Olympic athletes when it comes to holding this stuff inside. And it's nobody's fault and it's everyone's fault. I've said this before. Our culture, our conditioning, our school system, our ways in which we have thought that this is how you have to raise a human. This is how we be good, don't get mad. And there's so many side notes to that I won't get into it. But we have kind of culturized, that's a word, and conditioned our young to sometimes not let out these emotions. And I'm going to give an example of how we start to hold these things in. And I've done another video about this, but I'm going to give just a little snippet. It's on the origins of healthy aggression, and we will post all these links up as well. And so when we are born, when little baby comes out of mama and they are small and vulnerable, there's a lot going on there. A lot of people say, oh, there's nothing going on there. They're just a lump of cells and they're not fun until you can play with them. The amount of times I've heard parents say that is insane. But that little infant is a powerhouse of nervous system wires just firing. And imagine you've never seen light, you've never smelled, you've never heard sound cleanly, you've never felt touch. So much nuance and so much richness that little infant is experiencing. And then of course the communication with caregivers, people, etc. There comes a point when that little newborn starts to feel their power, right? His power, her power. And they start to test it. They start to get more strength within their muscles, within their nervous system, their somatic, motor, sensory nervous system. And one of the ways that babies start to show this, and everyone's a little different, and of course it's how that little one has been nurtured. Environment is so key, but they'll start to do things, especially when they're with mom nursing. They'll start to pound, they'll start to scratch, they'll start to pull her hair, they'll start to hit, and it's not because the little one is trying to be an asshole. Pardon my language, but it's true. They're doing it because their fight impulses, the chemicals that are responsible for what we call healthy aggression and pushing forward in life and saying, I am here, this is me, this is my life force energy, it is starting to come on, right? And there are a few things that happen sometimes. One, that little one is met with a mother or a caregiver. It doesn't have to be a mother, it could be a grandma, a nanny, but they're met with equal energy, not fighting back, but an energy of, oh my goodness, look at that strong hand, and then the little one is played with. You start to tug on the fingers, and you start to feel, oh yeah, what's that like to feel that power, right? A little baby isn't going to harm a parent that's older. It's just not possible. You might get a little scratch because the nails are long, but we want to foster that. So there might be a scenario where that is being fostered. That is helping that new, fresh human nervous system being experience their power and get that stuff out. Sadly, what often occurs, and this again, this goes back to how we've been conditioned and cultured, it's seen as bad. It's seen as this little, and I'll never forget Peter Levine saying this in one of our lectures with him, the mother thinks that their precious little lovely child is a monster, that little one is trying to hurt her, and if she has not worked on her own early traumas and traumas of boundaries and acceptance and her own life force energy, she will not know what to do with that big energy because she herself doesn't have that big life force energy. So what does she do? She shuts it down by either hitting them back, punishing them by putting them down. I can't take this. This is too much for me. How dare you do that? And so that, my friends, is the start of this healthy, sympathetic fight life force energy being squashed, and we don't want that. And so this is when they're infants, right? And this is where, and I'm not going to get into childhood development right now in relationship to the nervous system, but when we don't get that at the outset, it kind of sets up this cascade of that caregiver not knowing how to attune and connect to the little one. True story. I got to tell this story. One of my girlfriends has a child. He's older now. But when he was an infant, he started to scratch and hit and do these aggressive things. She's like, Irene, what do I do with that? I said, well, what do you think? And she said, well, I Googled it, and Google said that if my infant hits me, hit him back. And I was like, what? No. And I think what's unfortunate is that a lot of people are going to see those things and just be like, oh, well, Google must have said it, then this must be true, right? We know that's not the case. And so I said, well, when you do that, and I explained to her what I just explained to you, that's their energy coming up, wanting to meet you and say, hey, Mom, I'm strong. Look at me and look at how amazing I am. And here you are, and I want to share this energy with you. Imagine as an adult if one of your best friends or your husband or your spouse said to you, I've got this exciting news. I want to show you this new dance move, or I want to show you something. It doesn't matter what it is. And you say, no, that sucks. Stop it. Stop it. Go into the room, shut the door. I don't want to see it. That is the kind of message that's coming through to that little one. So what this mother did, and I said, when he does that, take his fists in a gentle but firm way and play drums on your chest. Be playful with that energy, the way a mother in the wild, a mama bear, will rough and tumble with her kids, with her cubs. And so my friend did this, played with him. When that energy was there, guess what happened? They never did it again. They never punched. They never scratched again. That doesn't mean that her actions suppressed that energy. It got matched. The wires got built, and then he moved on, right? And so that is one little example of emotion, the emotion, anger, why it's so important for us to understand it and healthy aggression. They're of the same, in the same spectrum. The word aggression comes from the Latin aggredi, which means to push forward, to move forward. So what this is saying is that this concept that we've kind of been raised with, to not be angry, to button it up, the stiff British upper lip, which has, transferred to so many places throughout the entire world, even though it originated, with that high level of aristocracy, it's making us sick. And we need to stop this. We need to learn the importance of these emotions and not explode and go around killing everyone, which sadly is kind of what we've seen happen in our human society, and harming others and destroying our world and all these things. I know it's really morbid, isn't it? We've kind of gone to the other end of this. We've got this stored anger inside, and rather than working with it in a way that is healing, we express it and act it out in a way that is harmful, right? So instead of working with it in a way that is healing, we express it in a way that is harmful, not only to us, but to others. The reason why I think it's so tricky to work with is because we've been brainwashed from so little. So again, that example of that baby who is not cognitively online yet. You have to understand, when that little infant starts to feel that healthy aggression, the burgeoning of that emotion, anger, they're not questioning it. It's just full, fifth gear, let it out, and then it gets stopped, right? And so it starts to come out. We need to be able to honor it. Now, of course, the question might be, well, Irene, how do I work with that when I know that that's probably what happened? Or maybe I don't even know that that happened, but I'm pretty sure it happened. And it comes down to, first of all, learning this education, which you're doing right now, and then starting to really learn how to listen to all emotions, not just anger. So if we suppress tears, if we suppress joy, if we don't allow ourselves to feel grossed out or disgusted at things, disgust is another primal emotion, mammalian emotion. When we stop any of the emotions, when we stop ourselves from being who we truly are, it's hard to get that anger out. And often you'll see these workshops and these very cathartic, weekend intensives where it's like, come get your anger out, and you're given a bat and you're given a pillow and you have to hit, or you go into some kind of boxing situation and you're just getting all that frustration out. The trouble with that is that if we just go into the hitting, if we go into the screaming, but we don't do it organically and with context, the system isn't going to know how to process it. So the goal is to eventually get to this point where we're so tuned to our biology and our body, and we build its capacity to feel safe, to feel connected, to feel supported. Then when we get those pieces on board, these anger, healthy aggression emotions, and all the other emotions, they start to visit and bubble up naturally on their own. And then when they do come up, because we've done the prep work and the groundwork, there isn't this confusion or fear. Most people that I work with, they stay away from working with anger and expressing it because they're afraid that they're going to kill someone or hurt themselves or cause more damage. And that's possible. It's possible that if we don't do this in a titrated, it's a very somatic experiencing term, in a step-by-step slow way, that is what might occur. And so I'll get to that in a little bit. The other reason why I think it's so tricky and confusing is that we just haven't seen it used, for the most part, successfully in society. And we see it in ways that are harmful, or we see it in ways that actually harm some people, meaning a person might get walked all over, not usually literally, but emotionally, because they don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know how to say no. And if we think about abuse and people being attacked and harmed, there's an interesting play in there. And so I'm going to speak to that real quickly right now. If someone is being harmed, say physically attacked, and they know that they are not going to be able to fight because the person is too skilled, is too big. This is very common with children who are being either physically or sexually attacked and abused by people bigger than them. Their physiology knows, I can't fight this and I can't get out, so I'm going to shut down. Right? This is kind of like nervous system basics 101. We have fight, we have flight, we have freeze. If we can't flee, first of all, if we can't connect and engage and de-escalate the situation, which usually with little ones is pretty hard because the big person is trying to overpower the little person. If we can't fight, if we can't flee, we will shut down. However, in that shutdown, what is under that shutdown is all the fight and flight survival stress. It gets stored in the physiology, and that gets stored in our tissues, and we keep it there forever unless we actively work with it. This is a very important part, because a lot of times there's this misunderstanding is like, oh, I feel fine. Yeah, I feel great. Yeah, everything's great. I'm kind of acting right now. Oh yeah, I'm really calm. Yeah. Just this but it's a frozen calm. We call this functional freeze. I did another video about that. Very important video to follow up with this one. So be sure to watch that afterwards if you haven't already, or review it if you already have. So under that, I'm great, I'm calm, I'm really okay. You can tell, you can almost see the tension in a person's face, in the bracing of their body. You can even see this in body types in terms of armoring, barreled chest, right? We see this in a lot of men and women, these chests and shoulders that are like literal armor, right? They might as well just be wearing a suit of armor because their muscles and their structure is so armored, there's no flow. And usually it's there for good reason, because they've had to protect all the crappy stuff that they have seen and witnessed and not known how to stomach and not known how to fight and flee, and so it's trapped inside. This goes back to what Mate talked about in this book in regards to how basically when we have this, it's not just chronic stress, it's survival stress, right? Right now, as I'm talking to you, there's a little bit of stress in my system. I'm looking at my notes. I'm making sure this is still going. I see there's 104 people. That's a lot of people. So this is stressful for me, but it's not dysregulating. Hope that makes sense. There's a little bit of stress. If I was so calm, you wouldn't hang around, because I'd be absolutely boring to listen to. You know, it just would be monotone. So the person, the people, the way society is, when we've had all these hurts and harms, and it doesn't have to be just big physical abuse and sexual abuse and that kind of thing. It can be micro traumas of, hearing mom and dad fight every night at the dinner table. Maybe they're not directing it to us, but they hate each other. And they're not splitting up, because that's not what you do. But that energy, that little one, inside their blood is boiling, wanting to leave, wanting to scream at them, say, stop it, get divorced, what are you doing, you're hurting me. But they won't do it, because a child has to save face. They have to stay protected, and they have to stay in that environment. And here's the thing. So we might go through life and not realize all the times we held in what we wanted to say. We wanted to cry, we wanted to scream, we wanted to say stop, stomp our feet, and yet we didn't. And so that's a little snippet into how fight and flight can get wrapped under that freeze response. And usually within those fight flights, because think, fight, anger, there's the emotion anger. And so part of the tricky nature with this is everybody wants a quick fix. Hopefully if you're here watching, you're starting to understand, while this work isn't a quick fix, it actually does work. And so when we work at these biological, physiological levels, learning how to be with our physiology, we start to build a different base. We start to connect to these emotions, not so much even from an emotional point of view, through what's going on in the limbic system, but how we feel it in our body, right? That gut sense, those butterflies in our stomach, the tightness in our throat that tells us we're holding back our words, the blood boiling in our hands that just wants to say stop. All these things are important medicine. So again, this idea of anger is medicine, when we can learn to work with these things and understand what they are and why they're stuck, it starts to become medicinal.